Okay, more of the practical circuits. I think this one talks mostly about interference problems. So RFI, or radio frequency interference, can be a big problem. One of the reasons can be what we call fundamental overload, where you have a very strong signal, because maybe you're right next to a radio station or something like that, or next to somebody's transmitter. So the signal is so strong, it's higher than the receiver's input is designed to operate with. So it can cause all kinds of distortion and things. There are problems from harmonics where you're getting multiples of the signal frequency. That's usually due to a problem with the transmitter. Whatever the carrier is, you'll see multiples of that carrier frequency that are supposed to be suppressed. I think the FCC requires either 40 or 50 dB down by like the third harmonic. So you have to be able to filter those harmonics out. And of course, then there's spurious emissions, which are similar, where you'll get some frequency spurs popping up in the spectrum that you need to be able to filter out. So any of those can create problems with your neighbor's TV and radio, or your own TV and radio, with computers. I don't see that as often, but I guess technically it can do it. And vice versa. People can affect you, although it's usually you're affecting them. So which of the following can cause radio frequency interference? You've been quiet. Anybody going for Delta?
All of them.
You know, it's not always Delta on the practice exams.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sometimes it'll say all of these answers are correct. It might be Alpha and Bravo. It could be anywhere.
I think on the real exam, they're always Delta, but
Really?
it's not always all the above.
With practice, yeah. No, I know that, but I'm saying that it seems on here it's always Delta, but the practice.
I guess they
exam-
randomize them, that's probably
Yeah,
why.
but a lot of them lately, and sometimes they could be anywhere on the list. All
Well, yeah, that keeps you on your toes. Okay, so if RFI is affecting somebody's radio or TV or computer, the first thing you're supposed to do is make sure that your equipment is operating properly, so that hopefully you're not the cause. You could still be the cause, but if you're operating properly, then you got to look for a different solution. Check that all your feed line antenna connectors are installed properly and are tight. Sometimes they will come loose. So a loose connection can cause a lot of this stuff. A little intermittent, and you can get some intermodulation, what they call it, where it will rebroadcast at different frequencies, kind of act like a mixer. And also verify that your own radio and TV and stuff isn't being affected. So if all that's true, then the problem lies probably with your neighbor, and they've got a crappy radio or something. And you might be able to go help them fix the problem. So which of the following actions should you take if a neighbor tells you your station's transmissions are interfering with their radio or TV reception?
Alpha.
Right, A.
Sounds good.
I know it wasn't B.
Yeah, you don't want to contact the nearest FCC office,
Wherever that is.
wherever that is. It's the government guy when he says, I'm here to help.
Yeah, no, they're not here to help.
What should be the first step to resolve non-fiber optic cable TV interference caused by your amateur radio transmission? I guess they put the non-fiber optic because you're not likely to cause a problem if it's a fiber cable TV installation.
And I'm gonna go with Delta. So.
I would.
Okay.
Okay, one of the things we talked about was fundamental overload. And that lady there is demonstrating fundamental overload when somebody is so loud you can't hear anything else. It's the same thing that your receiver sees. If it's got that strong a signal, you may not even get that signal and it's going to block everything else. Could also be caused if you have a very poor receiver that has low selectivity. In other words, its pass band is so wide that even a station relatively far away, if it's strong enough, it's going to be picked up. You can, in some cases, block out that signal by putting a usually like a band pass or a low pass filter in the front end, if you know what that frequency is, to get rid of it or reduce it. What would cause a broadcast AM or FM radio to receive an amateur radio transmission unintentionally?
A.
Well, let's see.
Yay.
Alpha. So rejection is kind of the reciprocal of selectivity. In other words, selecting the signal means you're rejecting all the stuff that you don't want. How can fundamental overload of a non-amateur radio or TV receiver by an amateur transmitter be reduced or eliminated?
The filter.
Got any alphas?
That would be my guess, but it's purely a guess.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it.
I kind of just ruled out the other ones, so.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
Okay, on B, you don't want to, I mean, if you're operating on the right frequency and properly, you don't want to put the filter on your transmitter and block your own transmission. The problem is in their receiver. So you need to put the filter on their receiver to fix the problem. And there's no reason to switch modes. I mean, that's just like turning your transmitter off. I mean, if you were on AM and causing the problem. And I don't think switching to narrow band mode would make the problem any better. Okay, you can have FM broadcast station interference. And the FM broadcast stations put out some pretty high power. So if you happen to be too close to one of those, like with your mobile installation, you can get overload. And your only recourse there is to install a band rejection filter for that broadcast station. If you're going to be in that vicinity all the time. I mean, if you're just passing by, it's not a big deal. Of course, if you live next door to it, that's a different issue. I know back when I was growing up, people over in Cincinnati that lived close to a couple of the big broadcast stations used to complain because their electric light bulbs would be glowing at night from the RF broadcasts.
Okay, that's funny.
Bob, has it gotten any better with the, most of the broadcasts going to digital now?
Actually, I don't know. I assume so.
There's still a signal in the air.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a good question.
I have an antenna
Thank
on
you.
my TV because I don't use.
I mean, I would think it'd be better, but I don't know either. I have no clue.
Yeah. I'll have to look that up. Which of the following can reduce overload of a VHF receiver by a nearby commercial FM station?
It's 12 o'clock.
D, installing a band reject filter.
We sometimes call that a notch filter.
Okay.
But it's gonna say band rejector in the test, right? Oh,
Yes, yes. So if you got neighbors interfering with your stuff, okay. You need to try to work with them to see if you can figure out where it's coming from. And maybe put a filter or something on, or make sure it's properly grounded, or they got bad connections which are radiating or something. You don't want to go over and tell them the FCC says this and you're in violation.
yeah, I'm not the FCC police.
You need to also make sure, probably the first thing you should do is to make sure your station is operating properly and you're meeting the standards of good amateur practice. And then try to help them fix the problem.
They need help.
So what should you do if something in your neighbor's home is causing harmful interference to your amateur station? I mean, it could be something like nowadays, a lot of these LED lights are putting out a tremendous amount of noise and interference. Some of them, the cheaper Chinese ones.
Really?
Yep.
The house is chock full of them. They all LED lights in the house.
Well, you may be lucky, or
I
you
don't
may
know,
have a
I
lot of
don't- I
noise.
guess I'll find out, cause I don't, I don't know. Kind of have any radios in my house. But I would go with Delta.
Delta.
Yep,
We're going Delta, but I'm gonna be kind of careful about B here in the state of Texas.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's a good,
In real life,
it's a
I'm
good way to
sorry.
get, it's a
That's
damn
why-
good way to get shot if it's anything like any of the neighbors I've ever had.
Yeah, exactly, that's where I live. You get knock on the door, you're lucky if you survive walking away.
That's why it says politely.
But the best I can do is maybe wave at them when they go to collect the mail. Hey.
Okay, you can have distorted, noisy, garbled audio even on FM. Okay, if you're off frequency. If your batteries, like in your handy talkie, get low, that can affect it. If you just happen to be in a bad location where you're getting maybe a lot of multipath reflections, loss of signal, some RF feedback because of you don't have good grounding, like in a base station. If you're over deviating where you're basically your microphone gain is too high or you're talking too loud and you're too close to the microphone, which cause over deviation, which will generate harmonics. What might be a problem if you receive a report that your audio signal through an FM repeater is distorted or unintelligible?
All of those.
Delta.
What's a symptom of RF feedback in a transmitter or transceiver?
C.
Charlie.
Feedback. Yeah, I guess C. Although I wanna say A, I don't know why.
It may or may not have anything to do with SWR. What can you do if you're told your FM handheld or mobile transceiver is over deviating?
Definitely talk louder.
D.
Yeah, D, Delta.
Yeah, I think we'll go with Delta. Okay, so we know RFI can be caused by fundamental overload. We can block the signal with a filter at the input of the affected receiver, like your neighbors, if they're complaining. It can be a result of harmonics that you're generating or spurious emissions. One of the problems when they first came out with the cheap Bofang radios, little $20 ones,
That was my first radio, it's a both thing, I gave it back.
they didn't really meet the FCC specifications for spurious emissions. And it took a while to get it fixed. There's a number of clones on the market where it's the basic Bofang radio, it's still made in China, where they've put some filtering in and fixed the spurious emissions.
They receive sensitivity sucks. So I gave it back.
Well, it's usually due to the rubber ducky antenna.
Maybe, I don't know, put them side by side and.
This made
I
a
got another
tremendous
Chinese
difference.
radio, it's, you know, none of the cheap radios happen to receive better.
Yeah. Let's see. If you're interfering with somebody's TV, you need to make sure that you're not really the cause by operating out of band. You got loose connections, or need to make sure that your station is working properly. And if you're generating AM or FM interference on somebody else's equipment, it's usually because their equipment isn't able to reject the signal. So that's another case where you could put a filter on. And let's see, if you're interfering with if your neighbors are interfering with you, that's the one where you have to tread lightly and try to work with them to figure out the problem. If it's FM broadcast, you can do the band reject filter, which everybody calls a notch filter, but on the test, it's a band reject filter. If you've got distorted or garbled audio, it's because you might be off frequency, low batteries, just in a bad location. You can try to move, you can charge your batteries. If it's from RF feedback, you'll get reports that your audio is very garbled or distorted. Whereas if it's just a weak signal, you may hear a lot of static in the background, the bacon frying sound. And if you're over deviating, where people may report it because it definitely causes some distortion. Usually you can just talk farther away from the microphone and don't talk directly into it.